The screen in my hand felt like it was radiating cold, a chill that went straight through my palm and settled deep in my gut. Chloe had just gone to the bathroom, leaving her phone on the kitchen counter. And for some reason, for a reason I still can't quite explain, my eyes landed on it. Not snooping, not intentionally, but the notification was right there, lit up. A message from Brendan, and it wasn't the usual, hey man, gym 6 a.m. kind of thing. Not even close. It started with, Brendan, I know you're having a tough time with Nathan, but please remember what we talked about. Your feelings are valid, and you deserve to feel safe and heard. Just that. That one message. My heart started thumping like it was trying to punch its way out of my chest. Chloe and I were both pushing 40 now, been married 12 years this past May. We've had our ups and downs like any couple, but nothing that would ever involve me being someone she needed to feel safe from, let alone discuss with my gym buddy, Brendan, my gym buddy, the guy I'd been spotting for twice a week for the last 2 years, the guy I occasionally grabbed a beer with after a particularly brutal leg day. My brain just stalled out, trying to process those words. Tough time with Nathan. Safe and heard. What the hell was that even supposed to mean? I scrolled back, almost instinctively, my thumb brushing the screen. And there they were, a whole thread. Not just one message, dozens, going back weeks, maybe months. It was a dense conversation, far too many messages to absorb, in the 2 seconds I knew I had before Chloe would be back. My vision kind of blurred around the edges, focusing only on snippets. Phrases like emotional labor, unmet needs, feeling dismissed. All things that sounded like they belonged in a couples counseling session. Not a casual text exchange between my wife and a guy I considered a friend. A wave of nausea hit me hard and fast. It wasn't just the words, it was the context. The intimacy. The fact that this was happening. All this deep emotional sharing. And I had absolutely no idea. I mean, Chloe and I talk. We really do. Or at least I thought we did. We'd always been pretty open about things. The struggles, the stresses, the small victories. The idea that she was confiding in Brendan about me, about our relationship, to this extent, and keeping it completely hidden, it was a punch to the gut. A cold, isolating kind of punch. I tried to put the phone back exactly where I found it, hands shaking a little, my mind racing a million miles an hour. What do you even do with something like that? Pretend you didn't see it? Confront her? And what would I even say? Hey, I saw your text with Brendan, the ones where you talk about me like I'm some kind of emotional oppressor. The thought was ludicrous, terrifying. The easy, comfortable rhythm of our life. The one I took for granted, it just shattered in that moment. That familiar feeling of home, of security, it was just gone. Replaced by this gaping chasm of uncertainty. And the worst part? Brendan. How could he? How could either of them? The betrayal felt so deep, so personal, and I hadn't even scratched the surface of what it all meant. That one single text, staring back at me from Chloe's phone, felt like it had ripped a hole straight through everything I thought I knew. It was so out of left field, so completely disconnected from the narrative of our life, that my mind just couldn't reconcile it. Because our story, Chloe's and mine, it wasn't some dramatic whirlwind. It was solid, predictable in the best way, or so I thought. We met back in our early 20s, 2005, in Flagstaff, Arizona. I was finishing up my degree at NAU, and she was working part-time at a little coffee shop downtown, the kind with mismatched furniture and poetry nights. I'd go in almost every morning before my 8 a.m. class, mostly for the terrible coffee and the free Wi-Fi, but quickly it became about Chloe. She had this way of making everyone feel seen, even during a rushed morning commute. Bright eyes, a quick, easy laugh that could cut through the general student grumbling. I was probably a walking cliche, the guy who nervously ordered the same thing every day, trying to build up the courage to say something more than Thanks. It took a couple of weeks, but I finally asked her out for a hike up to Fat Man's Loop. Clumsy, awkward, but genuine. And it worked. We talked for hours that first day. Found out we both loved old sci-fi movies, both hated cilantro, both dreamt of one day owning a house with a big yard for a dog. Our relationship grew slowly, naturally. No fireworks, just this deepening sense of comfort and understanding. We dated for 5 years before getting married in 2010. A small ceremony at a local botanical garden, just family and a few close friends. We weren't rich, didn't have grand plans beyond building a good life together. A good, normal life. After college, we ended up settling here, in a suburb outside Phoenix. I got a job in IT, something stable, and Chloe found work as a graphic designer for a small marketing firm. For years, our routine was exactly what you'd expect. Mornings were a blur of coffee, getting ready for work, maybe a quick chat about the day ahead. Evenings were dinner, usually something simple we cooked together, catching up on each other's day, maybe watching a show, reading. Weekends were for hikes, visiting family, tackling home improvement projects around our modest 3-bedroom house. We'd settled into this comfortable rhythm, this shared space where we knew each other's habits, anticipated each other's needs, sometimes finishing each other's sentences. It wasn't perfect. No relationship is. But it felt secure, like a deep, warm current flowing steadily forward. Brendan entered the picture about 2 years ago. I decided, finally, after years of talking about it, to get serious about my health. Joined a local gym, one of those big box places with all the shiny equipment. Brendan was just there. He was one of those guys who practically lived at the gym, always willing to offer a spot or some unsolicited advice on form. We hit it off, talking about weights, nutrition, eventually just life stuff. He was a few years younger than me, mid-30s, always upbeat. We started meeting up for early morning sessions, sometimes grabbing a protein shake or a coffee afterward. Chloe knew about him, of course. I'd mention him, Brendan and I crushed chest day today, or Brendan got me to try a new supplement. She never seemed to mind, just the usual, "Oh, that's nice, honey." Looking back now, with this fresh, horrifying context, there were little things. Little, almost imperceptible shifts that I totally missed or rationalized away. Chloe started going to the gym more often herself, not with me, but on her own. She'd say it was for spin classes or to use the treadmill. Totally normal, I thought, encouraging even. "Good for you, babe," I'd say. Sometimes she'd mention seeing Brendan there, just in passing. Ran into Brendan at the smoothie bar. I didn't think twice. Why would I? He was my friend, my gym buddy. There were also times when Chloe seemed a bit withdrawn. More quiet than usual, I'd ask, "Everything okay, Chloe?" And she'd brush it off. "Just tired, long day at work." Or, "Just a bit stressed about that new project." And I'd buy it. I mean, work can be stressful. Our jobs are demanding. And honestly, I was probably pretty absorbed in my own stuff too. A new project at work had me putting in longer hours. And I wasn't always the most attentive, I'll admit. I'd come home mentally fried, sometimes just wanting to zone out with the TV. Maybe those were the tough times with Nathan she was talking about. My own blind spot, my own self-absorption. Painting those small cracks as nothing more than the ordinary wear and tear of a long-term relationship. I genuinely believed we were just navigating the normal ebb and flow, not drifting apart into separate conversations I knew nothing about. The memory of that phone screen, the cold dread, it just stuck with me. Like a persistent, low-grade fever. I tried to push it down, to rationalize it. Maybe it was an innocent thing, a friend lending an ear. But the words, "feel safe and heard about me?" That wasn't just lending an ear. That was something else entirely. For the next few days, I was a ghost in my own house. I went through the motions, made coffee, went to work, came home, but my mind was just on a loop. Every time Chloe laughed, every time she said, "I love you," I heard an echo of those texts. It felt like she was playing a part, and I was too, only I didn't know the script. Then came the first real incident, about a week after I saw the texts. It was a Friday night, our usual takeout and movie night. We were on the couch watching some dumb action flick. Chloe was scrolling on her phone, and I, unable to stop myself, kept glancing over. She was smiling, texting someone. I tried to act casual. "Who's got you so engrossed, huh?" I asked, trying to sound light. She barely looked up. "Just Brendan. He's asking about a workout routine. Wants some tips for his sister." A vague sense of relief washed over me. Okay, normal. Work stuff, gym stuff. But then a little voice, the one that had been whispering ever since I saw her phone, just kept nagging. "Sister. Since when does Brendan have a sister that needs workout tips?" I mean, we'd talked a lot over the last 2 years. He'd never once mentioned a sister. Never. It was such a small thing, but it pricked me, like a tiny, almost invisible splinter. I let it go, though. Didn't want to seem paranoid. What if he did have a sister? It would make me look like a controlling weirdo. A few weeks later, something else happened. We were out with my cousin, Danielle, and her husband, Paul. We meet up for dinner once a month, just to catch up. Danielle and Chloe are close. Always have been. The conversation turned to my work, this big project I was heading up, and how stressed I was. I was talking about the long hours, the pressure, maybe a little too much. Chloe, who usually has my back in these conversations, just kind of nodded, looking a bit distant. Then Danielle, who knows me well, said, "Nathan, you really need to find a way to decompress. You're going to burn yourself out." And Chloe, out of nowhere, chimed in, "Yeah, I've told him that. He's not very good at listening when it comes to his own well-being. He gets so caught up." It was the "he's not very good at listening" part that stung. It was a mild criticism, but it felt loaded, especially with the "I've told him that," implying a history of my stubbornness, a history I wasn't fully aware of. Danielle and Paul shifted uncomfortably. I felt myself flush, but tried to brush it off. Oh, you know me, always trying to save the world one server at a time. But the comment lingered, a sour taste in my mouth. Later, in the car, I brought it up gently. "Did you really mean that about me not listening?" I asked. Chloe sighed, a little exasperated. "Nathan, sometimes you get into your own head. I just worry about you, that's all. It's not a big deal." I let it drop, but the words still played in my head. He's not very good at listening. Were these the things she was telling Brendan? Was this the Nathan he was helping her cope with? The tension in the house became almost palpable, at least for me. Every casual touch, every shared laugh felt tainted. I started scrutinizing everything. My own behavior, hers. Was I really that bad at listening? Was I dismissive? I tried to be more present, more engaged. But it felt forced, like I was performing for an invisible judge. I was getting paranoid. I knew it. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was a hidden layer to our life, a conversation happening just outside my earshot. Then came the third incident, maybe a month later. Brendan and I were at the gym, going through our usual routine. We were finishing up, stretching, and he started talking about some deep conversation he'd had with a friend. He wasn't looking at me directly, more at his shoes. "Yeah, she was really going through it," he said, shaking his head. Just felt so unseen, you know? Like her partner just didn't get it, didn't understand the emotional load she was carrying. It's tough when you feel like you're talking to a wall. He paused, then looked at me. "Man, you gotta be there for your partner. Really listen to them. It's crucial. Otherwise, people drift." The words hit me like a physical blow. The specific phrasing, unseen. Emotional load, talking to a wall. It was almost verbatim what I'd glimpsed on Chloe's phone, what she'd said to Danielle. My blood ran cold. He was talking about Chloe to me, but not directly. It was a thinly veiled lecture delivered under the guise of general advice. I just nodded, pretending to be deep in thought. Yeah, totally, I managed to mumble. Communication is key. My stomach was churning. This wasn't just an innocent ear anymore. This was a deliberate, calculated infiltration. He was acting like some kind of relationship guru, dispensing wisdom based on my wife's private complaints about me, directly to me, without ever admitting where the information came from. The audacity of it, the sheer disrespect. It made my hands clench into fists. I went home that day in a daze. I looked at Chloe, really looked at her, across the dinner table. She seemed fine, normal, laughing at something on TV. And I felt this surge of conflicting emotions. Anger, pure, hot anger, and both of them for this deception. But also a crushing sadness, a fear. Because if this was happening, if she was so unhappy with me that she was seeking this kind of therapy from my friend, then what did that say about us? About our 12 years? About everything I thought we had built? The easy comfort was gone, completely. Replaced by a constant gnawing anxiety. The ordinary life we'd created, the routines, the small habits, they all started to feel like a carefully constructed facade. And I was standing there behind it, knowing it was about to crumble, just waiting for the first strong gust of wind. I just didn't know how to initiate that gust myself without destroying everything. So I waited, simmering in silence, for the inevitable. The waiting was killing me. This silence eating away at everything. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus at work. Every interaction with Chloe felt like walking on eggshells, pretending I didn't know this secret thing was festering between us. It was a Tuesday, late afternoon. I'd gotten home a little early from work, maybe 4:30 p.m. The house was quiet, the usual afternoon sun streaming through the living room windows. Dust motes dancing in the light. Chloe was still at her office. She usually got back around 5:30 or 6. I walked into the kitchen just to grab a glass of water, and there it was again. Her phone. On the counter, face up. This time, no new notification. Just the usual lock screen. But something in me snapped. I couldn't wait anymore. I just couldn't. My hands were clammy as I picked it up. My heart hammered against my ribs. A frantic, desperate rhythm. I knew her passcode, of course. It was our anniversary. Not because I was a snoop, but because we'd always been open, never had anything to hide. Or so I thought. I unlocked it, my thumb fumbling slightly. Navigated to her messages, then scrolled down, past family, past work colleagues, until I found Brendan's name. My breath hitched. The entire conversation laid bare. I started reading, skimming at first, then slowing down, each word a fresh cut. It wasn't just complaints about me. It was more. So much more. There were long, rambling paragraphs from Chloe about her unhappiness, about feeling misunderstood, about how I didn't appreciate her. And then Brendan's response is, "You deserve someone who sees your worth. Don't let anyone diminish your light. I wish I could be there to give you a hug right now." And then, interspersed with these deeply personal exchanges about our marriage, were messages that weren't about me at all. Messages about their shared workouts, about how much she enjoyed their conversations, how he made her feel heard in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. There were even some suggestive emojis, little winks and hearts that made my stomach clench. Not overtly sexual, not yet, but loaded, charged. I sank into one of the kitchen chairs, the phone still clutched in my hand, the screen casting a pale glow on my face. The house was so still, so quiet, but inside my head it was pure chaos. Denial. That first, desperate lurch. No, this isn't what it looks like. This is just friendship. He's just a good listener. Chloe's just venting. But then the words themselves. Brendan's soothing, intimate words, her raw confessions. They just shouted back. This wasn't friendship. This was an emotional affair, at the very least. A complete betrayal of trust, happening right under my nose. My best friend, my wife. I felt a cold rage start to simmer, a heat spreading through my chest, but underneath it, a profound, aching sadness. Tears pricked at my eyes, surprising me. I hadn't cried in years, not really, but this felt like the ground beneath my feet had just given way. The sounds of the neighborhood, distant traffic, a dog barking, they all faded into a dull roar. The only thing real was the screen, the words, and the crushing weight of their meaning. Then I heard her car pulling into the driveway, the familiar crunch of gravel. Panic seized me. I quickly locked the phone, placed it back exactly where it had been, my hand still shaking. I took a deep, shuddering breath, trying to calm myself, trying to school my features. I stood up, walked over to the sink, and started running water, pretending to rinse a glass. My reflection in the window showed a pale, haunted face. The door opened. "Hey, honey, I'm home!" Chloe's voice, bright, normal. She walked into the kitchen, tossed her bag onto a chair. "Long day." "You're home early." She smiled, a genuine smile, and in that moment, I almost lost it. The sheer dissonance of it all. "Yeah," I managed, my voice sounding rougher than I intended. "Just wrapped up a bit early." I turned off the water, facing her. She started putting away her lunch bag. "Anything exciting happen?" she asked without looking at me. I just stood there, staring at her back. My mind was racing, trying to find the words. There were no gentle words for this. "Chloe," I started, my voice barely a whisper. She turned, a slight frown on her face. "What is it?" "You okay?" I took another breath. My chest ached. I saw your phone." The words came out in a rush, a clumsy confession. Her eyes widened, a flicker of something, surprise, fear, guilt, passing through them. She opened her mouth, closed it. What do you mean you saw my phone?" Her voice was tight. "The messages," I said, my voice growing stronger now, tinged with anger, with hurt. "With Brendan." "All of them." She paled, visibly. Her hands, which had been reaching for a cabinet, froze in midair. "Nathan, I can explain." She wouldn't meet my gaze. She looked down at her feet, then vaguely at the counter. The air in the kitchen suddenly felt thick, suffocating. The silence stretched, filled only by the frantic pounding of my heart. "Explain what, Chloe?" I finally asked, the words raw, tearing at my throat. "Explain how my wife is confiding every single negative thought about our marriage to my gym buddy. Explain how he's telling you deserve better and wishing he could hug you." My voice cracked at the end. I felt like I was shouting, but it was barely above a whisper. She finally looked up, her eyes wide and glistening. It's not like that, Nathan. He's just a friend. I was just having a hard time, and he listened. He understood." "He understood," I repeated, the incredulity making me laugh, a hollow, bitter sound. "And I didn't? Your husband of 12 years didn't understand? But Brendan, the guy I introduced you to, he understood?" I took a step closer. "Did you ever once try talking to me like that, Chloe? With that level of honesty? Did you ever tell me I was making you feel unsafe or unheard?" She just stood there, tears starting to track paths down her cheeks, shaking her head slowly. The usual vibrant sounds of our home felt distant, replaced by this terrible, crushing quiet. The sun was starting to set, casting long shadows across the kitchen floor, making the whole room feel stark and cold. Nothing felt real anymore. Just this moment, this brutal, unavoidable truth. The argument that followed that evening, and the ones after, they were brutal. Not shouting matches, not really. More like two people talking past each other. Words loaded with years of unspoken frustrations, and fresh, stinging betrayal. Chloe insisted it was purely emotional, that nothing physical had happened, that Brendan was just a good listener, and I had been emotionally unavailable. I didn't believe her fully, but at the same time, I desperately wanted to. My brain was screaming for proof, for clarity, but my heart just wanted the comfortable lie back. The practical problems hit almost immediately. We didn't have kids, thankfully, but our entire lives were intertwined. Our finances, our home, our routines, everything was shared. The house, which had always felt like our sanctuary, now felt like a battleground, or worse, a museum of a life that wasn't real. Neither of us wanted to leave, but staying together in that toxic silence was unbearable. The first week, Chloe slept on the couch. The second, I moved into the guest room, staring at the ceiling for hours, listening to the quiet of the house, wondering what the hell had happened to us. I told my sister, Lisa. She was furious, mostly on my behalf, but also just generally disgusted. Nathan, that's just a gut punch, a total betrayal. And with your friend? Seriously? Her anger was a small comfort, a validation that I wasn't crazy for feeling what I felt. But even then, I found myself defending Chloe, trying to paint a picture of complexity, of our shared failings, rather than just her actions. I still loved her, after all. The thought of just throwing everything away felt like tearing off a limb. I couldn't bring myself to go to the gym, couldn't face Brendan. Just the thought of seeing his smug, supportive face made my stomach churn. I even thought about confronting him physically, but what would that achieve? Just make things messier, probably. So I just stopped going. I found a different gym across town, a completely anonymous one, and just focused on lifting, trying to channel the anger and the hurt into something physical. It helped a little, just to have an outlet. Chloe, meanwhile, eventually admitted that Brendan had developed feelings for her. Not that he'd explicitly said it, but that it was clear in his messages, in his actions, in the way he treated her. That confession was another knife twist. It confirmed my fears, solidified the betrayal. When I asked her if she felt anything back, she was vague. I enjoyed the attention, Nathan. I felt seen. That was the closest I got to a straight answer. We tried therapy, couples, counseling. It was brutal. Sitting in that sterile office, picking apart our entire relationship with a stranger. It was a slow, painful excavation of all the things we hadn't said, all the things we'd assumed. Chloe talked about feeling invisible, about my long work hours, and how I'd sometimes tune her out when I was stressed. I talked about the shock, the betrayal, how her seeking comfort from my friend made me question every shared moment we'd ever had. The therapist, doctor, Evelyn was patient, but even she couldn't conjure magic. Chloe still couldn't fully apologize, not in a way that truly acknowledged the depth of my hurt. She apologized for my pain, but not for the actions that caused it. That distinction, for me, was huge. Financially, things were becoming a mess. We had joint accounts, shared bills, a mortgage. The thought of disentangling all of it was overwhelming. We started separating accounts, which felt so incredibly final, like drawing a line in the sand that we both knew was leading somewhere painful. Then came the final, unexpected discovery. It wasn't some grand revelation, just a small, sickening detail. I was finally packing up some of my things from the master bedroom, emptying out my nightstand drawer when I found it, tucked behind some old receipts and a spare phone charger, a small handwritten note. It wasn't addressed to anyone, just a simple list. Brendan, green tea, extra scoop of protein, no ice. Her handwriting. It was a specific order, his specific order, for the smoothie place right next to the gym. The place she sometimes went after her spin classes. Not exactly a smoking gun, not a picture of them kissing, but it painted a picture of a routine, a specific intimacy, a level of detail that felt far more involved than just running into him at the smoothie bar. It wasn't about the green tea. It was about the knowledge, the quiet, shared habit. It just reinforced that the emotional affair probably had a physical component, or at the very least, a regular scheduled rendezvous that went beyond simple texts. It just made everything feel 100 times worse. The betrayal kept peeling back layers, each one uglier than the last. So, here I am now. Almost 3 months out from that kitchen counter moment, Chloe and I are separated. Not legally, not yet, but I moved into a small apartment across town about a month ago. It's a tiny place, just a bedroom, living room, and a galley kitchen. Feels hollow, nothing like the home we built. We're still in the process of figuring out the house, the finances. It's slow, painful, and honestly feels impossible some days. I've learned a lot, I guess, though learned feels too clean a word for what's essentially a gaping wound. I've learned that trust, once shattered, is incredibly hard to put back together. Even if the physical stuff wasn't proven, the emotional breach was so profound, so devastating. I don't know if I could ever look at her the same way, or at anyone, for that matter. I thought I knew what our marriage was, what she was. And to have that entire perception flipped on its head, it makes you question everything. I also learned that I had blind spots, that I definitely got complacent. I was probably checked out more than I realized, caught up in my own world. That doesn't excuse her actions, not by a long shot, but it's a hard truth I have to face about myself. The impact on my future? It's still being written, I guess. I can't imagine dating right now. The thought of letting someone else in, of building that kind of trust again, it feels like an insurmountable mountain. I still want that big yard for a dog, that comfortable, shared life, but the blueprint for how to get there has just been erased. My relationships with other people, my friends, my family, they're still there, thank God. Lisa has been a rock, but there's a new caution, a new wariness that wasn't there before. A part of me just feels a bit broken. I'm sharing all this because, honestly, I don't really know what to do next. I feel like I'm drifting, waiting for the current to take me somewhere, but not sure where that is. Part of me still wants to believe we can fix this, that the 12 years we had aren't just erased. Another part knows that's a fantasy. How do you rebuild when the foundation has been so thoroughly cracked? How do you forgive something that feels so deeply intentional? I don't know if I'll ever truly understand why it happened. Not really. I guess I just wanted to put it out there into the void because sometimes hearing other people's experiences helps. Thanks for listening. I appreciate anyone who actually read through all of this. It helps just to type it out.